Recorded Books and One Click Digital present The Castaways War, One Man's Battle Against Imperial Japan by Stephen Harding. Narrated by Ian Harding. Eternal Father, strong to save, whose arm hath bound the restless wave, who bids the mighty ocean deep its own appointed limits keep. Oh, hear us when we cry to thee, for those in peril on the sea. The Navy Hymn. Prelude. Just before midnight on July 4th, 1943, Lieutenant Hugh Barr Miller, Jr. stood on the windswept flying bridge of the Fletcher-class destroyer USS Strong as the warship steamed southwestward through Kula Gulf, the deep but relatively narrow waterway separating the islands of Columbangara and New Georgia in the Japanese-occupied Solomon Islands. Bracing himself against the vessel's motion as it sliced through moderate swells, the 33-year-old officer peered through his binoculars at the barely discernible shape of the destroyer Nicholas, 1,500 yards directly ahead. And though he could not see them because of the darkness and passing rain squalls, Miller knew that following in Strong's wake were the light cruisers Honolulu, Helena, and St. Louis, with the destroyers O'Bannon and Chevalier bringing up the rear of the 2-mile column. The 7 warships, part of Rear Admiral Walden L. Pug Ainsworth's Task Group 36.1, had come to shower death and destruction upon Japanese positions on both sides of Kula Gulf. The mayhem was intended to prevent the enemy from interfering with the amphibious landing of American forces at Rice Anchorage on the northwest coast of New Georgia, an operation to be conducted by troop transports, mine vessels, and destroyers that were also, though only temporarily, part of TG 36.1 Ainsworth's light cruisers, and their escorting destroyers were to first shell an auxiliary airfield, gun emplacements, and other targets at the southern tip of Columbangara, then switch their fire to the area immediately surrounding the enemy-held harbor at Bairoku on New Georgia. The bombardment was scheduled to begin during the first minutes of July 5th and last for approximately a half hour, with the landing slated to commence shortly afterward and be completed by dawn. As the lead vessels in Ainsworth's bombardment group, Nicholas and Strong were tasked with conducting an intensive radar and sonar search along the course that the column of warships would follow. That roughly U-shaped route would first parallel the east coast of Columbangara and then turn directly across the Gulf and, upon completion of the mission, take the ships of the task group out of the Gulf to the north. The 2 lead destroyers were to engage any enemy aircraft, surface vessels, or submarines they detected anywhere along the task group's track and would join in the general bombardment only after the light cruisers shifted their fire to the targets on New Georgia. While the task of pummeling the enemy positions ashore would be left to Strong's big guns, 5 5-inch 38 caliber weapons in 2 single mounts forward and 3 aft, the close-in defense of the destroyer was up to the ship's 40mm and 20mm rapid-fire cannon. Miller, a lawyer in civilian life, was in charge of the 20mm weapons and the score of sailors who manned them. Intended primarily for air defense, the guns could also prove murderously effective against small boats and surface submarines. Though Strong's 5-inch mounts could be radar-directed, the lighter weapons had to be manually aimed and fired, and it was up to Miller to assign potential targets for his gunners based on the general bearing and range information he received from the radar operator or gunnery officer. By stationing himself on the open flying bridge, the second highest man position on the ship, Miller had an all-around view of the surrounding sea and could better determine which of his guns should engage a given target, passing the information to his gun captains via sound-powered telephone. Though Miller didn't yet realize it, however, the greatest threat to Strong was far beyond the range of his 20mm guns. Just over 20 miles to the north of where the ships of Ainsworth's bombardment group were preparing to open fire on their initial targets, another senior naval officer was pondering his own next move. Captain Kunitsu Kanuaka, commander of the Imperial Japanese Navy's IJN Destroyer Division 22, had just been told that the sole radar-equipped vessel in his 4-ship flotilla had detected several presumably hostile surface combatants moving south along the west side of Kula Gulf. This was decidedly unwelcome news, for only minutes before Kanuaka had ordered a course change that would take his 4 destroyers, Nagatsuki, Niizuki, Satsuki, and Unagi, into the increasingly crowded Gulf. The Japanese warships were packed with troops that Kanuaka was to have landed at Villa Plantation, the very place on Columbangara that was about to become the first target of the American bombardment. Though the Japanese officer was unaware of his enemy's intentions, he immediately understood that the U.S. Navy's mere presence in Kula Gulf would make it extremely difficult, if not impossible, for his ships to land their embarked troops.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?